everyone, and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. So the articles that we'll be discussing today are the first one, keeping vigil even during unusual times. So basically, this article tells about the important role that the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, the CAG, plays in the entire setup of the government, and even in the times of unusual times or in the times of like as that of COVID-19 pandemic, it is very important for the CAG to function in the same similar capacity. And then the second article is Bill of Exclusions. So this is from the Indian Express and talks about the ART bill, which is the Assisted Reproductive Technology Bill, which has recently been introduced in the Parliament. So what are the pros and cons attached to this? Basically, uh, it's like a critical analysis of this bill in this article. Thirdly, the Hathras dead end. This is again from the Indian Express, and the reason why we have picked up this article today is because this article has given a very good legal analysis of the entire case, as in which laws were to be followed in this case, but they were absolutely violated, and how which case laws give the support to those things and everything related to that. And then fourthly, we have the News and Flash column, wherein we'll be discussing the small and crisp news articles more important for our prelims exam. But before that, let's have a look at the LawSikho courses that we have for you. So we have the Lord of the Courses, which is the Judiciary Test Prep course. So if you are also preparing for Judicial Services exam, you must definitely have a look at it. And the link is there in the description box itself. Whenever you go and check out the landing page of this course, you can definitely download this free study material, which has been amazingly drafted for all the aspirants of judicial services. We have various other courses also that you can have a look at the LawSikho page. So let's see that what is the multiple choice question for the day. Prince William has announced the Earthshot Prize worth £50 million for first, climate change solution, second, space innovation, third, rural development, or fourth, none of the above. So descriptive question for the day is, what is assisted reproductive technology? Critically analyze the ART Regulation Bill 2020. So you need to write down the answer to this question within a word limit of maximum 250 to 300 words. With this, let's start with the discussion for our first article, which talks about the role of CAG, or the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, during the COVID-19. So with the nation spending substantial resources, the role of CAG of India has increased. So recently, the Karnataka Accounts Committee, or the PAC, directed the CAG to conduct a special audit to firstly on the purchase of COVID-19 equipment within 15 days, and the expenditure which has been incurred by state government under state disaster response plan. Now, as we know that the role of the CAG in India is very crucial when it comes to auditing the expenditure that has been made by the government in any situation, and specifically if we talk about a situation that is coming out of any pandemic or any unusual situation. So we know that the government makes extraordinary spending in that regard. So at that time, it becomes even more important for the CAG to keep a check as to the resources or the expenditure has been done in the right sense and for the right things as well. Because many times what happens is that many unwanted elements of the society, not actually unwanted elements to say, but yes, obviously many authorities also, they indulge themselves into activities of corruption, specifically in such unusual times, because they believe that it would not be feasible for the others or the checking authorities to find out such corruption activities, and they tend to use or misuse the money, more appropriately if we say. So they tend to misuse the money and spend it into wrong things, and just keep it into their own pockets. Now, in such a situation, it becomes really important, coming from the role of the CAG, to check such activities and to make sure that the public money has been spent exactly in the right direction and for the right things, both in terms of quality as well as quantity. So let's understand that what are the constitutional mandates or the constitutional responsibilities that have been endowed upon a comptroller and auditor general in India. Firstly, the responsibility to ensure public accountability, transparency, effective service delivery, and good governance. Obviously, if these are all the things that the CAG is offering, or he offers, by means of checking that the money has been spent in the right direction. Secondly, management of a pandemic is not an exception. So we should understand that it is not like that the role of CAG comes only in the times of pandemic, or only in the unusual times, or in the times of exigencies or disasters. The role of CAG is very crucial otherwise as well too. Even if there is no exigency, there is no any kind of disaster that is occurring in the country, but still it is important to make sure that the public money is spent in the right way. And that is why certain reasonable exceptions can be made during the time of pandemic, but still his work or job is not an exception even during such times. Thirdly, the audit objectives, that is for economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, may include procurement of equipment and drugs for central government health schemes, wellness centers, and polyclinics, laboratories, and hospitals. So even the procurement of equipment and drugs would also come under the as in the expenditure made in this regard will also come under the audit objectives of CAG. And beneficiary survey to bring out efficacy of service delivery, availability, and quality of drugs as well. Just like as I said, mentioned that not only in the terms of quality but also in the terms of quantity. So let's see that what will be the benefits of an inspection by CAG as to how does this inspection or the audit that is so importantly done by the CAG adds to the transparency and benefit of the whole nation. So it actually raises the red flags in disaster management, emergency procurement, and related expenditures. Because very recently, as we know, that the CAG had submitted his report in the parliament, and the CAG had pointed out that there were various areas where the public money had not been spent to the fullest and to the best of the use. And these were the red flags that were raised by the CAG. So also in the cases of disaster management, in emergency procurement and related expenditures, it is the CAG who actually brings to the notice of the people that some amount of money either has not been used or has been misused. So that is a very important role that the CAG plays. Then the disasters provide an opportunity for scamsters to siphon off the money, public money, in the wrong manner, as we just discussed. And also, the benefits of inspection by CAG include appraise the disaster preparedness. Because obviously, see, if the complete and better accounting is done, so it actually makes sure that we are prepared for any such disasters, or the disaster preparedness that is very important is appraised, it increases, and we are more efficient in solving and dealing with such problems. And all in all, it helps ensure that management, mitigation operations, procedures are complied with, proper internal controls are in place. Then proper records, documentations, authentic, accurate information are available. Public resources are used prudently as per the law. Risks are assessed, identified, and minimized with established process and procedure. And compliance with applicable rules and procedures is done. So that is why we should understand that the role of CAG is really very important. And many times questions from CAG have been seen in exam, and it is a very important part of the Constitution of India as well. So we should be very well prepared with this topic. And also, since it is a lot into news, we should very much be ready quite much with this topic and the depth of it. With this, let's discuss the second article for the day, which discusses about the Assisted Reproductive Technology, or the ART. So Union Health Minister Harshvardhan recently introduced the Assisted Reproductive Technology Regulation Bill 2020 in the Lok Sabha. So this bill actually aims to regulate the assistive reproductive technology banks and clinics, allow safe and ethical practice of ARTs, protect women and children from exploitation. By ART banks, by clinics, all of you know what we mean by the ART clinics. By ART banks, we mean that the banks, like just we have the blood banks. Similarly, we have such ART banks as well that actually store the gametes or the eggs or embryos or some related things like this. So they're actually kept in such ART banks. So this will supplement the SRB bill, which is the Surrogacy Regulation Bill 2019, and it is still waiting consideration by the Rajya Sabha. Now let's understand that what are the main concerns or the red flags that have been raised against the ART bill. Firstly, who can access the bill. Now, who actually, or what class of people have the access to use this particular bill? So it allows married heterosexual couple and a woman above marriageable age to use this bill, but it excludes single men, cohabiting heterosexual couples, and LGBTQI individual and couples. So in a way, just like a live-in, so we can understand that single men or live-in couples and even the same sex or the homosexual individuals or the couples or even the LGBTQI community individuals have been totally excluded out of this the ambit of this bill. Then further, this thing actually is, violating the Article 14, that is right to equality of the Indian Constitution, and also the right to privacy, as in the Puttaswamy judgment case, which says that the sanctity of marriage, the liberty of procreation, the choice of a family life, and dignity of being concerned all individuals were aspects of privacy, and that is why it relates to everybody. And excluding any individual or somebody or some community like that for that purpose is actually violative of their right to privacy as well. Then the protection of the egg donor. So no significant protection has been given to the egg donor in this act. Like for the harvesting of eggs is an invasive process and can result in death if performed incorrectly. But the bill requires an egg donor's written consent, but it does not provide for her counseling or the ability to withdraw her consent before or during the procedure. Only the donor receives no compensation or reimbursement of expenses, and just that there is only one provision wherein the party has to take out an insurance policy in the name of the donor, but apart from that there is no other compensation or anything reimbursement available for the expenses, and this results in unpaid bodily labor, which is unfree labor prohibited by Article 23 of the Constitution again. Then it restricts the egg donations to a married woman with a child, so at least 3 years old. So here the egg donations are to be made by a married in such a situation, and here also the egg donation, it is again restricting the entire scope of the act. Then the bill requires pre-implantation genetics testing. An embryo suffering from pre-existing heritable, life-threatening or genetic diseases can be donated for research with commissioning parties' permission. So if not regulated properly, it may promote the eugenics. So this again is becoming something really, that can be highly criticized as well in the first place, and also misused heavily, because if in case there is any like life-threatening or genetic diseases, so after the consent of the parents or the permission of the parents, that particular embryo can be donated for purpose of research. Now here maybe this is a welcome step in the field of science and research and technology, but then again this can be heavily misused, because many times consent can be manipulated and it can be misused to a great extent. Then the both bills, the ART, that is the Assisted Reproductive Technology, and the Surrogacy Bill do not work in tandem. Now, the very purpose for which the ART bill has been introduced in the Lok Sabha was that they said that it is to supplement and to support the surrogacy bill. But in actual sense, they do not actually even work in the similar direction, and many a times the provisions in both the bills are just opposite to each other. Now, how? The core ART processes are left undefined. So the basic things, the basic terms which are very necessary for the Act have been left undefined, and there is no clear definition provided under the Act. Several definitions are not synchronized between the bills, as in the similar terms have different definitions in both the bills, which have a great tendency of bringing in any kind of ambiguity or confusion to the minds of the users. Then both the bills set up multiple bodies for registration. Duplication and lack of regulation is possible through it, because obviously if we know that something, if it is not properly centralized and it is way too distributed, just like the bodies for registration, there is a high chance that things are duplicated and even there is a lack of regulation and control. And the difference in record maintenance period, like it is 10 years for ART whereas 25 years for surrogacy. So it is really necessary that if we want these both bills to work in collaboration with each other and support with each other, these should actually complement each other and not cut down each other. So this should be taken care by the Parliament. Now, the next article that we'll be discussing is the Hathras incident. As we know that very recently a young girl, a 19-year-old Dalit girl, was allegedly raped and murdered by some upper class men and she has recently passed away, unfortunately. And this entire article discusses the legal backing to the procedures that should have taken place, but they were actually violated by the UP authority, or the UP, or the Uttar Pradesh government. So, as we know, that the 19-year-old Dalit woman she had been gang raped by 4 men, and she sustained multiple injuries and has died eventually. And the police has denied the occurrence of rape in a way. So, what are the issues involved? Firstly, the hasty and forceful cremation of the victim. Now, as we know that the after the death of the victim, the body was very hastily and hurriedly cremated by the police authority, and they did not even allow the family members of this young girl to see her for the last time. And it was taken in a very hurried decision. Now, this is something that has been highly criticized, and this actually is making the people to wonder against the very intention of the UP police in this regard. And due to this, the violation of the victim's right to dignity under Article 21 has been violated, which was highlighted in the case of Par, Parmanand Katara versus Union of India 1995 and Ramji Singh versus Uttar Pradesh 2009. Then, the district magistrate was seen threatening and intimidating the victim's family, and this is something really bizarre, because even if a person who's at such high post in the administration and you are found, exploiting or intimidating a victim's family, this is really, really very hazardous for any social fabric. So his role and interest in speedy disposal of body need to be probed under Section 201 of the Indian Penal Code. Then the medical samples were sent to forensic after 11 days, which already makes the entire process to be futile. As we know that even under the CRPC section 164A for the medical examination, it provides that within 24 hours, the medical samples or the medical tests should be done to provide or to corroborate the instance of a rape. But in this case, it was sent after 11 days for the forensic research or the forensic detailing, which absolutely gives it no sense. And the time lapse between the occurrence and time to medical examination renders the samples worthless. So, in the case of UP versus Babul Nath, it was held that policing aside, seminal stains in victim's body are essential to prove the rape. So in this case, obviously, if you are sending in after a time period as long as that of 11 days, it definitely proves your negligence towards this or your lethargy towards such cases. And then the very, very important thing of dying declaration, which comes under which under section 32 clause 1 of the Evidence Act. So here, if medical samples fail to prove the rape, then the dying declaration comes out to be such a strong proof that that does not even need to be corroborated in the Indian evidence system. So it is solely based on victim's dying declaration, and if dying declaration has been recorded, so the rape must be upheld, and it is presumed that every word uttered by a dying person is true. So that is the very idea behind the dying declaration. But here, and also the dying declaration does not need to be corroborated, as it was held in the case of Ashai versus Maharashtra 2013. And minor discrepancies can be overlooked due to pain and suffering of the victim, as held in the case of Abrar versus Uttar Pradesh 2011. And in this case also, the dying declaration had been very well recorded, and the victim had very much identified the wrongdoers as well. But still, it is somehow, I don't know, it makes no much sense, but has been not really considered by the authorities, and still the police is denying the rape charges. So let's hope that the judiciary takes the best step in this direction, and no laws are violated and overlooked by the judiciary. With this, let's see that what do we have for news in flash today. Firstly, Nobel Prize for Literature. So American poet Louis Gluck won the 2020 Nobel Prize for her unmistakable poetic voice that with austere beauty makes individual existence universal. So she's well-known poet for themes of childhood and family that draw inspiration from myths and classical motifs. So she has also won the Pulitzer Prize in 1993, as we know that it is also one of the most prestigious prizes when it comes to literature, for her collection named as The Wild Iris, and the National Book Award for Faithful and Virtuous 2014. Secondly, Earthshot Prize announced. Prince William has announced the environmental prize worth £50 million aimed to reward climate change solutions over the next 10 years. So this Earthshot prize, as we know, the name is itself suggesting, it is there for the climate protection. So it has been inspired by US President John F. Kennedy's launch of Moonshot in 1961. So this was all for today. We hope it was a good and informative session for you all. Thank you so much.